أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد أما بعد المعقد التاسع عشر شغف القلب بالعلم وغلبته عليه. Alhamdulillah, this is our second to last lesson for this matan, for this text. We're at the 19th principle of knowledge, the 19th foundation of knowledge, which is شغف القلب بالعلم. Shaghaf is passion. So the heart's passion, شغف القلب بالعلم, with knowledge or for knowledge. So the heart's passion for knowledge, شغف القلب بالعلم. وغلبته عليه. غلبة refers to dominance. So غلبته عليه. So غلبة العلم على القلب. So the dominance of knowledge, its dominance over it, over the heart. So the heart's passion for knowledge and its dominance over it. This is the topic of today's chapter, inshallah. It's a very important topic, and especially living in today's day and age where we are bombarded with unsolicited advice about follow your passions, for example, or do what you love, and productivity, and making things fun and making things enjoyable, and finding pleasure in what you do. All of these things are in abundance in the market. You can find self-help books on such topics, and the reality is that whatever these books try to sell, the underlying point is that it is human nature that you will not feel motivated with something, or at least not for a long enough time, something that you do not love, something that you do not find pleasure in. Okay? And as Muslims, and especially those Muslims who have taken on the burden of, inshallah, wanting to carry the flag of the Sunnah, take on the baton and pass it on to the next generation in terms of the knowledge of Allah Azza wa Jal. If we want to engage in this journey, this duty of spreading the deen of Allah, then we must understand that it's not a short journey, right? It's a long journey. In fact, it's a lifetime journey. It's something that you will take with you to the grave. This ilm that you've taken, inshallah, all of this will go with you until your grave. So you're seeking knowledge from the beginning until you die. So this ilm has to be, you have to find pleasure. You have to find tranquility, and this must be fun for you. This must be the most engaging thing for you. Right? How do we achieve that pleasure with knowledge? A lot of people, the reason why they don't carry on is studying the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal, is because they treat this science, this business of learning, they treat this business of studying the deen of Allah just like any other subject. They think it's like studying maths or physics or some subject in humanities or social sciences, whatever, where you're guided solely through your passions, let's say your childhood intrigues, for example. If you read books like the famous book by Robert Greene, the famous author of many books like the 48 Laws of Power, and his book on mastery is very well written on the topic of finding your true self, true calling, and then honing on those talents, to achieve some purpose in life, and then to sort of perfect that trade of yours until you die. So you find your life's task and you perfect it. You become a master in it. And then he gives you secular examples like Leonardo da Vinci and Fuller and Mozart and other, from the Western sphere of the world. These masters according to the Western tradition. Okay, and in that book he really highlights this point of in fact, he dedicates a whole chapter, the first chapter, on this task of finding your life's calling. Okay, so he takes you through some exercises as to how do you go and visit your childhood memories to see which thing really ignited your passions, what you found pleasure in, for example, right? This is not like that. Okay, seeking knowledge is compulsory. Seeking knowledge about Islam, to be specific, is compulsory on all Muslims. Right? And then who wants to carry that further and become an Islamic scholar, they're not doing it because, firstly, they find it just as pleasing as some particular secular field of interest like maths or physics. Right? This shaghaf, this passion that you find for this knowledge, specifically knowledge of Allah Azza wa Jal, it's driven by a spiritual force as opposed to some sort of psychological although there is a psychological inbuilt sort of the fitrah sort of a push towards this knowledge as well, but that is clouded because of the times that we live in, right? It becomes murky for the soul to realize that. So the more we learn about Allah Azza wa Jal, the more it is polished, and then the closer we get towards that passion. However, on a deeper level, this passion is more of a spiritual passion. It's a passion that is yearned for by the soul, right? So we can't deal with this when we talk about passion with knowledge, or passion for knowledge, passion for seeking and studying and going and driving yourself, exerting yourself through the hard times and boring times and topics which are dry and like grammar and so on and so forth. Some people can find it pleasurable as well. But the point is that some people, there's always a dry subject for someone. What are you going to do when you come across those kind of subjects? If your passion is a completely secular passion, if it's a completely academic passion driven by your personal inclinations, then you're not going to last very long. Okay, so this is I'm going on. I'm speaking. I'm saying a lot of these things right now, just to differentiate this fact that this business of seeking knowledge for the sake of Allah is different from the pursuit of knowledge when it comes to the secular pursuits like the study of humanities, social sciences, or the sciences, and so on and so forth. Okay, that's a very important distinction to make from the get-go. We have to be very clear that what we are following is a path towards Jannah, a path towards knowing Allah, a path towards truly exalting and venerating Allah as He deserves to be venerated and honored in this world. So this path is different from a path of a completely individualistic, a very particular personal inclination that you may have towards a particular subject. And the beauty of this is that, subhanAllah, this passion for knowledge that you have for the knowledge of Allah Azza wa Jal, your personal inclinations can sort of power this, right? Can power this. For example, some scholars they seek the knowledge of Allah because they want to worship Allah upon basira, yes. But then, subhanAllah, within their specific service that they do in their lifetime, you'll see some element of their personality show up, more than anything else. طيب. For example, some scholars would show a genius level of a mastery of poetry when narrating you the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, like Ibn Hisham does from Ibn Hisham's tanqih, basically, of the seerah of Ibn Ishaq. Okay, so you'd find that a person always finds a way, a da'i a scholar, a shaykh or a shaykha, they always find a way to use their personal inclinations towards the service of the deen. Okay, that is secondary. Okay, inshallah. The primary purpose, the primary passion that we're talking about here is the passion of the ruh. Okay, it must come from the heart. It must come from the soul. It must be for the sake of Allah, right? So much so that your whole life is dedicated towards that. Okay, so it's a spiritual passion as opposed to an individualistic, mere psychological passion. Okay, so because this is this is bigger than ourselves. This is bigger than us wanting to make a difference, perhaps in some particular field, or finding our true expression in through some secular science or through some secular pursuit of knowledge. Because it's spiritual, the Shaykh says, فَالصِّدْقُ الطَّلَبِ لَهُ يُوجِبُ مَحَبَّتَهُ وَتَعَلُّقَ الْقَلْبِ بِهِ. The sincerity of pursuit towards this knowledge, يُوجِبُ مَحَبَّتَهُ وَتَعَلُّقَ الْقَلْبِ بِهِ. If you are sincere, if you're truly sincere, and this passion that you seek, to serve the deen of Allah and study His deen, it will only come, it will only show itself, it will only reveal itself, and you will only taste the pleasure and the true passion and love for studying the knowledge of Allah. فَالصِّدْقُ الطَّلَبِ لَهُ يُوجِبُ مَحَبَّتَهُ. When you have the sincerity, okay? So the Shaykh says, starting from this point of sincerity, فَالصِّدْقُ الطَّلَبِ لَهُ. So sincerity in your pursuit of this knowledge, يُوجِبُ مَحَبَّتَهُ. It necessitates its love. So when you start off, when you come from this pedestal of truthfulness towards this pursuit of knowledge for the sake of Allah, to know who Allah is, to love Him, to venerate Him, to exalt Him, to do ta'zeem of Him, this sincerity will necessitate, it will sort of impregnate the heart with the love of this knowledge, because this knowledge is a direct reflection of your love for Allah, because this knowledge has come from Him. وَتَعَلُّقَ الْقَلْبِ بِهِ. And the heart's connection, that is attachment with this knowledge. Okay, all of that comes back to your sincerity. Why are you seeking this knowledge? Are you clear that this is a lifetime business? Are you clear that this will demand from you many sacrifices? It will demand unimaginable level of commitment. Do you know that when you start your pursuit of knowledge for the sake of Allah? Of course, we're talking about knowledge which is beyond the compulsory, obligatory knowledge that every Muslim needs to know. Okay, we're moving beyond that. You want to make this a lifetime business. You want to make this a full-time commitment of yours, to be a talib al-ilm, to seek knowledge of Allah Azza wa Jal. Are you clear on your, in terms of your sincerity as to why you're doing this? That you know that there are going to be obstacles, there are going to be hindrances, there are going to be potholes in the way which are going to trip you. Are you prepared for that mentally? Because if you're not sincere, you're not going to commit, let alone, you get to a place that you start to love this knowledge, and that you start to have this connection and attachment towards it. Okay? وَلَا يَنَالُ الْعَبْدُ دَرَجَةَ الْعِلْمِ حَتَّى تَكُونَ لَذَّتُهُ الْكُبْرَى فِيهِ. And a slave will never attain a level in knowledge, a higher pedestal in knowledge, a higher rank in knowledge in terms of his understanding and his standing with Allah, in terms of his khushu' of Allah, his taqwa of Allah, his knowledge of the Sharia, and so on and so forth. A person will never attain that level of knowledge حتى تكون لذته الكبرى فيه, until his greatest pleasure, his greatest the greatest sweetness that he finds, the greatest taste and pleasure that he finds is in that knowledge. He will never attain that, because if you don't develop that passion, that love, that taste for knowledge, you will never be able to commit to the problems. You will give up. And when you are sincere in the beginning, and you know it's a lifetime game, and you want to commit yourself to it, and you stay put, for a long enough time, inshallah, eventually you'll start feeling this love. طيب. And there will come a time when nothing will be more beloved to you than this ilm of Allah Azza wa Jal. And that is when Allah starts to give you, it starts to open your mind and your chest and your heart towards this light, subhanAllah. Okay, he tests you initially. Like for now, for example, for the students here, for myself even, how many years of our lives have we actually committed to knowledge? 5 or 3 or 2, 1, few months? How many months have we given it so far? Why do we expect for Allah to give us so much knowledge instantly when we haven't even proven, when we haven't even built a case for our commitment in front of Allah Azza wa Jal? We have not proven we have not proven as to our capabilities, as to why should Allah give you this knowledge. It's an amana, it's a trust, and Allah does not give His trust, His nur, His light to those who are unfit for it. تمام. وإنما تنال لذة العلم بثلاثة أمور. For indeed, this ladha of ilm, this pleasure of knowledge, is attained with 3 things, 3 important things. ذكرها أبو عبد الله ابن القيم رحمه الله. Imam Ibn Qayyim, Abu Abdullah رحمه الله, he mentions that these 3 things, once you have them, that is when eventually you will, inshaAllah, you will taste the pleasure. You will truly feel the pleasure of towards this knowledge. You will take pleasure in this. It will make you happy. There will be nothing more beloved to you in this whole world than this knowledge, because you don't love anything more than Allah Azza wa Jal. You don't love anything more than the Prophet ﷺ and Allah. طيب, after Allah. Khair, what's the first thing? أحدها, you can read it as أحدها as well. بذل الوسع والجهد. بذل الوسع, exerting one's al-wus', utmost effort. Wal-juhdi, wal-jahdi, there's a slight difference in the meaning, but let's say al-juhd is your efforts, so and al-jahd is your energy, let's say, so your power, quwwah. So exerting one's utmost effort and energy. As I said already, it's a lifelong commitment. You have to prove yourself first as to why you are fit for this knowledge. So you have to show your commitment. You have to prove why should, let's say you enroll into a university program, why should the university grant you, let's say, a degree at the end of it, if you haven't proven yourself? طيب. And as everyone knows, you can only do a master's and a PhD, so you can only be granted those high levels of knowledge, keeping in this framework of knowledge, after you have completed a bachelor's, right? So essentially, if bachelor's is a milestone, then that is a metaphorical sort of milestone, a kind of a milestone that there is some milestone that we have to cross. Okay, Allah has to see you cross that milestone, and then Allah Azza wa Jal, depending on your sincerity and your hard work and how much your exertion you've made and you've put forth towards this, your effort and your energies towards this knowledge, that Allah Azza wa Jal starts to open up your heart towards this knowledge. The second thing is وَثَانِيهَا صِدْقُ الطَّلَبِ, your sincerity in this pursuit. Your sincerity or your genuineness in this pursuit. وَثَالِثُهَا وَثَالِثِهَا صِحَّةُ النِّيَّةِ وَالْإِخْلَاصِ, the validity of your intention and your sincerity. Okay, so how truthful you are in this pursuit of yours, and thirdly, the validity and the sihha can be translated in different ways. It means health, sometimes it means validity. So sihhatu an-niyya is how valid your niyyah is. Okay, how upright your intentions are. Are they for the sake of Allah? Are you seeking this knowledge for the sake of Allah? Are you really sincere? Do you have the purity of intention and the purity of sincerity? Are you pure in those two things? And then do you come with truthfulness in this pursuit? And then do you exert yourself? Do you do all of those things? Once you do that, you will start to develop a love for this, for the sake of for this ilm. And then once you have that, the rest of the journey is easier. The rest of the journey is easier. The Shaykh says, وَلَا تَتِمُّ هَذِهِ الْأُمُورِ الثَّلَاثَةِ إِلَّا مَعَ دَفْعِ كُلِّ مَا يُشْغِلُ عَنِ الْقَلْبِ. لا تتم هذه الأمور الثلاثة. هذه الأمور الثلاثة, these three things which will grant you the true pleasure of knowledge. لا تتم. They are not complete. They can never be complete. إلا مع دفع كل, except with pushing away everything, كل ما, everything that يشغل عن القلب, that distracts the heart. So removing everything, pushing everything, divorcing everything that distracts the heart from this knowledge. Okay? So essentially 4 things that you have to keep in mind. That while you are inshaAllah pure in your intentions and your sincerity, and then you're truthful in this pursuit of, and you're doing this for the knowledge, for the sake of Allah, and then you're exerting yourself, while you do all of these things, you must not allow anything to distract your heart from this. If you do this, and once you do this, and until you do this, inshaAllah, you're not going to taste the ladha. And once you've done all of these things, once you've come with these things, inshallah, you will definitely, with the permission of Allah, you will feel the pleasure, the true pleasure, the true peace and tranquility that you find in this, inshallah. You will find it. Allahu Akbar. He says, إِنَّ لَذَّةَ الْعِلْمِ فَوْقَ لَذَّةِ السُّلْطَانِ وَالْحُكْمِ. Indeed, the pleasure of knowledge, لَذَّةَ الْعِلْمِ, فوق, it is far beyond, far above and beyond لذة السلطان والحكم, the pleasure of a sultan, power or authority, والحكم, and governance or dominance, right? It's far above the pleasure of having power and authority and governance and being in a position of some form of assertiveness, right? Sultan, of course, refers to being in authority, being in power, and hukm refers to you having your say, being the last say in every affair. Everyone has to follow. So people, subhanallah, التي تتطلع إليها نفوس كثيرة. This authority and this power of governance is the thing that people, they long, they seek. They seek. Majority of humanity, most of the people, نفوس كثيرة تتطلع إليها. Most of the people, this is the sultan wal hukm, these two things, this is what they seek, what they yearn for. طيب, what they yearn for. And this ladha of ilm is much, it's far above and beyond the ladha, the pleasure of sultan and hukm, the ladha of the pleasure of authority and dominance. The two things, the two pleasures in life that most people yearn for. وَتُبْذَلُ لِأَجْلِهَا أَمْوَالٌ وَفِيرَةٌ, and because of which, i.e. sultan and hukm, because of these two things, because of which an abundant amount of wealth is spent. وَتُفْسَكُ دِمَاءٌ غَزِيرَةٌ, and a plenty of blood is spilt because of these two things. Okay, so what the Shaykh is saying in paraphrasing his words, basically, he says that the two pleasures, of sultan and hukum, the two pleasures of being in power and authority and having your say being the last say, having that assertiveness in amongst the people, most people, or rather a majority of the creation, they yearn towards for these things, and for attaining these two things, these two pleasures, they are willing to spend an abundant amount of wealth, an unimaginable amount of wealth, and spill an abundant amount of blood to achieve these two things, to attain these two things. This is why the wars they take place, infighting, civil wars, whatever the case may be, disruptions in the political sphere, two countries fighting each other, so on and so forth. Then the Game of Thrones within the internal strife, strife of the policy of a country, for example. All of these things. Why does it happen? Because of the pleasure of these two things, authority and power. And subhanAllah, some people seek knowledge for these two things, to be qadis and governors and so on and so forth. Ma'adallah. The Shaykh says the ladha of ilm is above and beyond all of these things. The person who truly attains after observing these four things that the Shaykh has mentioned, the person who truly attains the ladha of ilm, this pleasure that once he finds it, once he attains it, it is far beyond any pleasure, subhanallah. It's beyond the pleasure of women, children, wealth, the dunya, everything, subhanallah. It's because of this that the ulama, a famous report from the ulama of the past, two of them, they were traveling and they wanted to eat something and they didn't have any food, so they only had dried bread, which had turned stone hard, and so they both went to the riverside and decided to dip their this hard bread into the water to soften it up and then eat it. And then as they're eating it, they laugh at each other. They laugh together, and one of them says that, subhanallah, if only the kings knew the happiness and the pleasure that we find in this path of knowledge, wallahi, they would have fought us for it. They would come to fight us for this pleasure. Subhanallah, they'll be willing to fight us to death if they only knew what pleasure we are experiencing, the sweetness that we experience. Subhanallah. And it's not just that, subhanallah, even some of the kings, one of their last wishes was that they attained everything in life except knowledge. In fact, there's a famous statement. The Shaykh says, وَلِهَذَا كَانَتِ الْمُلُوكِ تَتُوقُ إِلَى لَذَّةِ الْعِلْمِ. And it is for this reason that many of the kings, al-muluk, تَتُوقُ, they used to long towards this pleasure of knowledge, this لذة العلم, وتحس فقدها, and they used to really feel its loss and not having it. They used to really miss they used to feel this knowledge missing from them. وتطلب تحصيلها, they used to exert themselves, they used to seek to attain this ladha in whatever capacity they could. قيل لأبي جعفر المنصور. Abi Ja'far al-Mansur is one of the founding members of the Abbasid Caliphate, one of the great Abbasi Khulafa. He's one of the great Khulafa al-Abbasiyun. It was said about him, قيل لأبي جعفر المنصور الخليفة العباسي المشهور. It was said to Abu Ja'far al-Mansur, the famous Abbasi Khalifa, it was said to him, who is this person? الذي كانت ممالكه تملأ الشرق والغرب. He's the one whose dominance, whose kingdom It filled the east and the west. That's how far and wide his kingdom was spread. Al-Khalifa Al-Abbasi Al-Mashhur, Abu Ja'far Al-Mansur, okay? In fact, he's a very important person in our history for many, many reasons. And inshallah, you should read about on his life at some point. It was said to him, هل بقي من لذات الدنيا شيء لم تنله? Is anything from the pleasures of this dunya, left that you have not attained, that you have not tasted? فقال, so he said, وهو مستو على كرسيه وسرير ملكه, while he was sitting on his throne and the seat of his kingdom, his arsh, basically, his throne, while he was seated on it. He said, بقيت خصلة. Yes, there is one thing that's left. Indeed, there is one thing that is left. بقيت خصلة. What is that? Subhanallah, he says, أن أقعد على مصطبة وحولي أصحاب الحديث أي طلاب العلم فيقول مستملي من ذكرت رحمك الله. He says, there is one thing that's left. He says that this wish that أن أقعد على مصطبة, that I sit upon a bench or a platform, assuming the position of a teacher, a sheikh, وحولي أصحاب الحديث, and around me are the أصحاب الحديث, the companions of hadith, أي طلاب العلم, the students. فيقول المستملي, and the scribe, he says, من ذكرت رحمك الله? What did you say يا شيخنا? What did you say رحمك الله, may Allah have mercy on you? يعني فيقول, يعني what he wants to say is that I say, that he says, narrating to his students, intending حدثنا فلان قال حدثنا فلان إلى آخر الحديث, يعني ويسوق الأحاديث المسندة. يعني he's expressing his last wish to be that he says to the students of knowledge in his company as a teacher who has knowledge, and he narrates to them a hadith saying حدثنا فلان قال حدثنا فلان إلى آخر الحديث, and towards the end of the hadith, يعني ويسوق الأحاديث المسندة, and he narrates the transmitted ahadith. Subhanallah. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. And lastly, the Shaykh says, وَمَتَى عُمِرَ الْقَلْبُ بِلَذَّةِ الْعِلْمِ سَقَطَتْ لَذَّاتُ الْعَادَاتِ. And when the heart is filled with the pleasure, the delight of knowledge, سَقَطَتْ لَذَّاتُ الْعَادَاتِ, the pleasures of adat, normal day-to-day life, they fall apart. Once the true delight of knowledge it makes a place in the heart, all pleasures of normal habit, they fall apart. وَذَهَلَتْ النَّفْسُ عَنْهَا, and the soul and nafs becomes oblivious to them. It becomes oblivious to them, as if it never knew those adat, those mundane, normal pleasures of from what people seek. As if it never knew those pleasures. Subhanallah, it forgets everything. بل تستحيل الآلام لذة بهذه اللذة. Subhanallah, this is so beautiful. He says, Subhanallah, بل تستحيل الآلام لذة. Allahu Akbar. Yani rather, all the pains, al-alam, all the pains, تستحيل, they turn into لذة. Yani rather, all the pains, they become pleasures. Subhanallah. All pains become pleasures. بهذه اللذة, because of this لذة, because of this delight of knowledge. Subhanallah. Alhamdulillah. So we ask Allah Azza wa Jal, as we're about to finish this book, inshallah, tomorrow will be our last session. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to grant us the true delight of knowledge, the true love for this knowledge. May Allah Azza wa Jal, grant us the commitment to sacrifice our lives, our wealth, our children, our wives, our families, everything for the sake of Allah in this path of knowledge. May Allah accept us from His ibad. May Allah make us from one of His sincere slaves. And may Allah Azza wa Jal accept us for the service of His deen. And may Allah Azza wa Jal, all of us, may Allah Azza wa Jal, grant all of us the highest stations in Jannah with those whom we love, from the prophets and the Sahaba and the Shuhada and the Salihin, and inshaAllah from our parents, that inshaAllah that we see Allah Azza wa Jal, and Allah is proud of us because of what we have done and how we have spent our lives. And it is only through this path, as we explained in the beginning, this path of knowledge is not just an individualistic pursuit of some academic inclination. No, it's much greater than that. It's the greatest thing that you can have in this world. The greatest thing a slave is blessed with is the true knowledge of Allah. The greatest thing that a slave can know in this life, the highest thing that you can know as a person, as a human being, is who Allah is and how exalted He is. His ta'zeem. SubhanAllah. To know Allah is the greatest of knowledge. SubhanAllah. So may Allah Azza wa Jal grant us all the true knowledge of who He is, so that we may venerate Him and exalt Him and do ta'zeem, His ta'zeem, as He deserves to be exalted, as He deserves to be worshipped. Allahumma ameen. Barakallahu feekum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.